settle into the sleepy mind channel. Today we will explore a little-known place in Japan, beneath the clear waters off the coast of Yonaguni Island, where a massive underwater formation has raised a quiet and lasting question about what we are truly looking at. If you like videos like these, feel free to like and subscribe. More videos are posted weekly. Beneath the surface of the ocean, the seabed begins to take on a form that does not immediately match the surrounding environment. Large stone surfaces stretch outward in broad, flat layers, forming shapes that appear unusually ordered. These surfaces descend in wide terraces, with edges that meet at angles that feel precise, as though they follow a pattern. This does not rely on chance. From above, the formation is hidden beneath moving water, but as divers descend, it gradually comes into view. What first appears as a faint outline becomes a series of connected planes, each one extending further than expected. The structure does not present itself all at once, but reveals its scale slowly, expanding outward as more of it is seen. As the water clears and the light settles across the stone, the details become more defined. Long, straight lines run across the surfaces, intersecting at points that form corners and edges. Some sections appear layered, as though shaped into steps that descend in measured intervals. Other areas stretch outward into flat platforms that create a sense of open space within the formation. This arrangement creates an immediate sense of structure. The surfaces do not curve or scatter in irregular ways, but instead hold their form with a quiet consistency. The edges remain sharp, the lines remain straight, and the planes remain level in ways that feel stable and deliberate. This consistency is what first draws attention, as it stands apart from the more varied forms typically found beneath the sea. As divers move along the formation, they begin to experience how its layout guides movement. The terraces lead from one level to another. This creates pathways that can be followed. Open sections connect to narrower edges, and flat surfaces transition into vertical drops that define the shape of the structure. This creates a sense of direction, where movement through the space feels organized. This does not rely on random. Light filters down from the surface in soft beams, shifting gently with the motion of the water. As it passes over the formation, it highlights the edges and surfaces, bringing out the contrast between flat planes and deeper sections. Shadows gather along the vertical faces, adding depth to the structure and reinforcing the clarity of its form. Despite these features, the formation exists within a natural environment that continues to shape it. Marine life moves across the surfaces, and currents flow steadily over the stone, influencing its appearance over time. The interaction between the structure and the surrounding ocean creates a setting where natural processes are always present, even as the shapes themselves appear unusually defined. The discovery of the site began with divers exploring the waters near Yonaguni Island. During these explorations, the unusual shapes beneath the surface were noticed, leading to further attention and study. What started as a local observation gradually expanded as more people became aware of the formation and its distinctive appearance. As interest grew, researchers began to examine the site more closely. Measurements were taken, patterns were observed, and comparisons were made with both natural formations and known structures. Each approach added new information, while also reinforcing the complexity of the site. The challenge lies in how the evidence is interpreted. Flat surfaces can be seen as natural fracture planes, while sharp edges can result from the way rock breaks under pressure. At the same time, these same features can resemble elements that are typically associated with construction. The formation does not resolve this tension, but instead holds it in place. This uncertainty is what gives Yonaguni its lasting presence as a subject of study. It is not defined by a single conclusion, but by the range of possibilities it presents. The structure invites careful observation, encouraging a slower way of looking that allows each detail to be considered without rushing toward an answer. As we begin this journey, we will move gradually through the formation, exploring its location, its features, and the different ways it has been understood. We will look at how natural forces can shape stone into forms that appear structured, and how those forms can influence perception. We will also consider how interpretation plays a role in what we believe we are seeing, and how that belief can change over time. For now, the formation remains beneath the water, quiet and unchanged, shaped by forces that continue to act upon it. It does not present itself as a solved question, but as an open one, where observation and interpretation remain closely connected. The discovery of the Yonaguni Formation did not begin with a search for ancient structures, but with a routine exploration of the waters surrounding Yonaguni Island. Divers had been visiting the area for its clear visibility and active marine life, moving through the coastal waters in a way that was focused on the natural environment. This does not rely on anything hidden beneath it. It was within this familiar setting that something unexpected began to take shape. During one of these dives, attention was drawn to a section of the seabed that appeared different from the surrounding terrain. At first, the change was subtle, a shift in texture and form that did not immediately suggest anything unusual. As the diver moved closer, however, the outline of the formation became more defined, revealing flat surfaces and edges that stood apart from the irregular patterns typically found beneath the sea. What made this moment significant was not only the presence of these shapes, but the way they held together as a continuous structure. Rather than appearing as scattered rocks or isolated features, the surfaces connected to one another, forming a larger system that extended beyond a single point of observation. This continuity suggested that the formation was not random, but part of something more extensive. As the discovery was shared, additional dives were conducted to observe the site more closely. With each visit, more of the structure was revealed. Divers began to map out the edges, follow the terraces, and move along the surfaces to understand how the formation was arranged. This process was gradual, as the full extent of the structure could not be seen all at once, but had to be explored piece by piece. The clarity of the water around Yonaguni played an important role in this process. Visibility allowed divers to observe the formation from a distance, making it possible to see how different sections connected before moving closer. This perspective helped establish an early understanding of the scale of the site, showing that it extended across a wide area of the seabed. The discovery quickly drew attention beyond the local diving community. Reports of the formation began to circulate, describing a site that did not fit easily into familiar categories. The combination of flat surfaces, sharp edges, and large scale created a sense of curiosity, as observers tried to understand how such a structure could exist beneath the water. Early documentation focused on describing what was visible. This does not rely on explaining it. Photographs and videos captured the surfaces, the edges, and the transitions between different levels. These records allowed others to see the formation for themselves, even if they had not visited the site directly. This sharing of visual information expanded awareness and encouraged further investigation. As more people became aware of the Yonaguni Formation, the process of discovery shifted from initial observation to more detailed examination. Divers returned to specific areas to confirm what had been seen, tracing the same lines and surfaces to ensure that they were consistent. This repetition helped establish a clearer picture of the structure, reducing the possibility that the features were being misinterpreted. The experience of moving through the formation contributed to how it was understood. Divers described how the terraces guided movement, leading from one level to another in a way that felt organized. Open areas connected to narrower sections. This creates a flow that could be followed. This sense of movement through the structure added another layer to the discovery, as it suggested that the formation could be experienced as a space. This does not rely on just observed as an object. At the same time, the surrounding environment continued to provide context. Marine life moved across the surfaces, and currents passed steadily over the structure. These natural elements were always present, reminding observers that the formation existed within an active ocean environment. This balance between the structured appearance of the formation and the natural behavior of its surroundings added to the complexity of what had been discovered. The growing attention led to increased interest from researchers and observers with different perspectives. Some approached the site with a focus on documenting its physical features, while others considered how it might fit within broader patterns of natural or human activity. This range of interest expanded the scope of the discovery, moving it beyond a single observation into a subject of ongoing study. Despite this growing attention, the discovery remained grounded in what could be directly observed. The formation presented its features clearly, but did not provide an immediate explanation for how they had come to exist. This absence of a clear origin meant that the focus remained on careful observation, where each detail contributed to a larger understanding without resolving the question. The process of discovery therefore became an ongoing experience. This does not rely on a completed event. Each dive added new information, each observation confirmed or refined previous ones, and each perspective contributed to a broader view of the site. The formation did not reveal itself all at once, but continued to unfold through repeated exploration. This gradual unfolding is an important part of how Yonaguni came to be understood. Rather than being defined by a single moment of recognition, it developed through a series of observations that built upon one another. This layered process reflects the nature of the formation itself, where its full scale and structure can only be appreciated over time. As the discovery continued to develop, the formation began to take on a presence that extended beyond its physical location. It became a point of curiosity, drawing attention from those interested in understanding how such a structure could exist. This attention did not immediately lead to answers, but instead created a space for further exploration and interpretation. For now, the discovery remains rooted in the moment, when the formation was first seen and recognized as something unusual. That moment marked the beginning of a process that continues to unfold, where observation and understanding grow together over time. Yonaguni Island sits at the far southwestern edge of Japan, positioned where the East China Sea meets the open waters of the Pacific. It is a remote location, separated from the main islands of Japan and closer in distance to Taiwan than to the larger population centers to the north. This positioning places Yonaguni within a region shaped by open ocean conditions, where currents, visibility, and underwater terrain all contribute to how the surrounding environment is experienced. The waters around the island are known for their clarity. This allows divers to see significant distances beneath the surface when conditions are calm. This clarity is not constant, but when present, it reveals the seabed in a way that makes large-scale formations visible from above. It is this visibility that allows the Yonaguni Formation to be observed as a connected structure. This does not rely on as isolated fragments. Ocean currents move steadily through the region, influencing both the surface conditions and the environment below. These currents carry sediment, shape the seabed, and affect how features appear over time. The movement of water is continuous. This creates a dynamic setting where the underwater landscape is never entirely still. This constant motion plays a role in how the formation is both revealed and altered. The seabed around Yonaguni is composed of natural rock formations shaped over long periods by geological processes. These formations include areas of exposed stone, as well as sections where sediment has settled. The variation in these surfaces creates a textured environment where different types of rock and material interact with the surrounding water. Within this setting, the Yonaguni Formation emerges as a distinct feature. It does not replace the natural seabed, but exists as part of it, integrated into the broader landscape. The formation follows the contours of the ocean floor while also presenting shapes that stand apart from the surrounding terrain. This combination of integration and distinction contributes to how it is perceived. The depth of the formation is within a range that allows divers to reach it without the need for specialized deep-sea equipment. This accessibility has played an important role in its study, as repeated visits are possible. Divers can return to specific areas, observe details more closely, and build a consistent understanding of how the formation is arranged. Light plays a significant role in shaping how the site is experienced. As sunlight passes through the water, it changes in intensity and direction. This creates patterns across the seabed. These patterns shift with the movement of the water, altering how edges and surfaces are seen. In areas where the light is strong, the formation appears clearly defined, while in deeper or shadowed sections, it becomes more subdued. The interaction between light and water also affects color. The deeper a diver moves, the more colors are filtered out, leaving the stone in tones that are more muted. This creates a visual environment where form becomes more important than color, drawing attention to the shapes and structures of the formation. This does not rely on surface detail. Marine life is present throughout the area, moving across both the natural seabed and the surfaces of the formation. Fish, coral, and other organisms interact with the structure, adding another layer to how it appears. These elements do not define the formation, but they contribute to its overall presence within the environment. The surrounding terrain provides a point of comparison that makes the Yonaguni Formation stand out more clearly. While the natural seabed includes irregular shapes and varied textures, the formation introduces surfaces that appear more uniform and continuous. This contrast helps observers identify the structure within the broader landscape. The location of Yonaguni also places it within a region that experiences seasonal changes in weather and ocean conditions. Storms, shifts in current strength, and variations in water clarity all influence how the site can be accessed and observed. These factors mean that the formation is not always seen under the same conditions, adding variation to how it is experienced over time. The isolation of the island contributes to the sense of distance from more commonly studied locations. Yonaguni is not part of a heavily developed or densely populated region, and this distance shapes how the site is approached. Exploration requires deliberate effort, and each visit becomes part of a focused process of observation. The underwater environment around Yonaguni is therefore defined by a combination of clarity, movement, and natural variation. These elements work together to create a setting where large-scale features can be seen, but also where conditions are constantly shifting. This balance between visibility and change influences how the formation is understood. The presence of the Yonaguni Formation within this environment highlights the importance of context. The shapes and surfaces that define the structure are not separate from the surrounding conditions, but are influenced by them. The movement of water, the interaction with light, and the composition of the seabed all contribute to how the formation appears. Understanding the geographic setting provides a foundation for interpreting the formation itself. Without considering the location, the currents, and the surrounding terrain, it would be difficult to fully appreciate how the structure fits within the environment. Each of these elements adds to the overall picture. This creates a more complete view of the site. The combination of remote location, clear water, and dynamic ocean conditions makes Yonaguni a place where observation depends on timing, movement, and perspective. The formation is always present, but how it is seen can change depending on these factors. This variability adds depth to the experience of the site, where each observation can reveal something slightly different. As attention shifts from the surrounding environment to the formation itself, the defining features of the Yonaguni structure begin to stand out more clearly. These features are not isolated details, but part of a larger arrangement that repeats across the site. This creates a sense of continuity in both shape and scale. The more closely the formation is observed, the more its surfaces, edges, and levels reveal a consistent pattern. One of the most noticeable elements is the presence of large, flat surfaces that extend across wide sections of the structure. These surfaces appear level and continuous, forming broad areas that resemble terraces. They are not scattered or uneven, but hold their shape in a way that feels stable, as though they have been set into place. The size of these plains adds to their impact, as they stretch outward beyond the immediate field of view. This suggests a larger system beyond what can be seen at once. Along the edges of these surfaces, sharp lines define where one level ends and another begins. These edges do not fade gradually into the surrounding rock, but instead form clear boundaries that separate different sections of the structure. The precision of these lines creates a strong visual contrast, making each level distinct and easy to follow as the formation descends. In several areas, These levels step downward in a sequence that resembles a series of descending platforms. Each level connects to the next through a vertical drop. This creates a pattern of repetition that extends across the formation. This stepping arrangement contributes to the sense that the structure is organized in layers, where each section follows a similar form. Vertical surfaces play an important role in shaping the overall appearance of the formation. These sections rise sharply from the lower levels, forming faces that appear smooth and continuous. In some places, these vertical planes meet horizontal surfaces at angles that approach right angles. This creates corners that feel defined and stable. The clarity of these intersections reinforces the structured appearance of the formation. The surfaces themselves often appear layered, as though the stone has been arranged or formed in distinct sections. These layers can be seen along the edges, where slight variations in texture or alignment suggest a sequence of formation. The presence of these layers adds depth to the structure, making it possible to observe how different parts relate to one another. As divers move across the formation, the arrangement of these features creates a sense of direction. Flat areas lead into edges, edges lead into drops, and drops open into new surfaces. This progression forms pathways that guide movement. This allows the structure to be experienced as a connected space. This does not rely on as a collection of separate elements. The ability to move along these surfaces contributes to the impression that the formation has an internal organization. In certain sections, the surfaces appear to align in ways that create straight paths across the structure. These paths are not marked or enclosed, but are suggested by the continuity of the flat planes and the edges that define them. This alignment creates a visual flow, where the eye is drawn along the lines of the formation from one point to another. The repetition of these features across the site reinforces their significance. Flat planes, sharp edges, and vertical drops appear again and again. This creates a pattern that extends beyond a single location. This repetition suggests that the formation is not random, but follows a consistent set of characteristics that define its overall structure. At the same time, there are variations within this pattern. Some areas appear more defined, with clearer edges and smoother surfaces, while others show signs of irregularity. These differences add complexity to the formation, preventing it from appearing entirely uniform. The combination of consistency and variation contributes to the overall sense of depth within the structure. The scale of these features becomes more apparent as they are observed in relation to a diver's movement. What may initially appear as a simple surface reveals itself to be much larger when approached closely. Edges extend further than expected, and drops descend more deeply than they first appear. This shifting sense of scale adds to the experience of the formation as it continues to expand beyond initial perception. Light interacts with these features in ways that emphasize their shape. As it moves across the surfaces, it highlights the flat planes and casts shadows along the edges and vertical faces. This contrast makes the structure appear more defined, bringing out the lines that shape its form. The change in position of light throughout the day adds variation to how these features are seen. The presence of marine life introduces movement across the otherwise stable surfaces. Fish move along the edges, and smaller organisms attach themselves to sections of the stone. This activity does not alter the structure, but adds a layer of motion that contrasts with the stillness of the formation itself. Despite the clarity of these features, the formation does not present itself as a single unified shape when viewed from one position. Instead, it reveals itself gradually, with each section contributing to a broader understanding of the whole. This means that the full extent of the structure can only be appreciated through continued observation and movement. The combination of flat terraces, sharp edges, vertical drops, and layered surfaces creates a formation that feels both structured and complex. Each element contributes to an overall arrangement that holds together across the site, forming a presence that is both consistent and varied. These features are central to how the Yonaguni Formation is understood, as they provide the visual evidence that observers use to interpret its origin. The clarity of the shapes invites close attention, encouraging a careful examination of how the structure is formed. As the features of the Yonaguni Formation became more widely observed, one of the primary explanations offered was that the structure is entirely natural. This perspective approaches the site through the lens of geology, focusing on how rock forms, breaks, and changes over time under the influence of environmental forces. Rather than beginning with the assumption of design, this view considers how the characteristics of the formation might emerge from processes that occur naturally beneath the sea. The rock that makes up the Yonaguni Formation is believed to be a type of sandstone, a material that forms through the compression of sediment over long periods. Sandstone is known for its tendency to fracture along flat plains, particularly when it is subjected to pressure or shifting conditions within the earth. These fractures can create surfaces that appear level and edges that appear sharp, producing shapes that may seem more structured than expected. When sandstone breaks along these natural planes, it can form large flat sections that extend across wide areas. These sections are not shaped intentionally, but result from the internal composition of the rock and the forces acting upon it. Over time, repeated fracturing can produce a series of layered surfaces. This creates the appearance of terraces or steps within the formation. Erosion plays an important role in shaping these fractured surfaces. As water moves across the rock, it gradually wears away irregularities, smoothing some areas while leaving others more defined. This process can enhance the clarity of edges and planes, making them appear more precise than they originally were. The continuous movement of water ensures that this shaping process is ongoing, contributing to the evolving form of the structure. Ocean currents are a key factor in this erosion. In the waters around Yonaguni, currents move steadily across the seabed, carrying sediment and influencing how rock surfaces are worn down over time. These currents do not act evenly, but vary in strength and direction. This creates patterns of erosion that can produce both smooth surfaces and sharp transitions between levels. The combination of fracturing and erosion can lead to the formation of right-angled edges and straight lines. While these shapes are often associated with constructed environments, they can also occur naturally when rock breaks along consistent planes and is then shaped by external forces. The presence of these features at Yonaguni does not require human intervention, but can be explained through the interaction of geological processes. Another factor to consider is the role of tectonic activity in the region. The area around Yonaguni lies within a zone where the Earth's crust is subject to movement. This can create fractures and shifts in rock formations. These movements can influence how the rock breaks and settles, contributing to the formation of flat surfaces and defined edges. Over long periods of time, these processes can produce structures that appear organized, even when they are the result of natural forces. The repetition of similar patterns, such as layered surfaces and stepped formations, can create a sense of consistency that resembles design. However, from a geological perspective, this repetition is a natural outcome of how certain types of rock respond to pressure and erosion. The underwater environment adds another layer to this process. The constant presence of water means that erosion is not limited to occasional events, but occurs continuously. This ongoing interaction between water and rock can refine the features of the formation, making them more pronounced over time. The clarity of the water around Yonaguni allows these features to be seen in detail. This can influence how they are interpreted. When edges and surfaces are visible across larger distances, they may appear more uniform than they would in a more obscured environment. This visibility enhances the perception of structure, even when the underlying processes are natural. From this perspective, the Yonaguni Formation represents an example of how natural forces can produce shapes that resemble those created by human activity. The combination of rock composition, fracturing, erosion, and environmental conditions creates a setting where structured forms can emerge without deliberate design. The natural formation theory does not dismiss the unusual appearance of the site, but seeks to explain it through known processes. Each feature of the formation can be examined in terms of how it might result from geological activity, building a case that the structure can be understood without requiring additional explanations. At the same time, this perspective acknowledges that interpretation plays a role in how the formation is perceived. The human tendency to recognize patterns and assign meaning to shapes can influence how natural features are understood. What appears to be a deliberate structure may, in some cases, be the result of natural processes that produce similar forms. The strength of the natural formation theory lies in its ability to account for the features of the site using processes that are well understood. By focusing on how rock behaves under pressure and how it is shaped by the environment, this explanation provides a framework for understanding the formation within a natural context. However, the presence of this explanation does not end the discussion. The same features that can be explained through geological processes are also the ones that raise questions about their appearance. This overlap between explanation and observation is what keeps the discussion open. This allows multiple perspectives to exist alongside one another. Alongside the natural formation theory, another perspective considers the possibility that the Yonaguni structure may be partly or entirely shaped by human activity. This interpretation does not begin with certainty, but with observation, focusing on the features of the formation that appear organized in ways that resemble constructed environments. Rather than dismissing natural processes, this view asks whether those processes alone are sufficient to explain every aspect of what is seen. One of the central points in this perspective is the overall arrangement of the formation. The terraces, edges and surfaces do not appear randomly distributed, but seem to follow a pattern that feels ordered. Large flat areas connect to one another in ways that create continuous pathways, while vertical drops define levels that repeat across the structure. This sense of organization is often associated with deliberate design, where elements are placed in relation to one another. The scale of the formation also contributes to this interpretation. The surfaces extend across wide areas. This creates spaces that resemble platforms or open sections within a larger layout. These areas do not appear isolated, but connected in a way that suggests planning. The consistency of these connections raises the question of whether such an arrangement could arise without some form of intentional shaping. Certain features within the formation resemble elements that are commonly found in constructed structures. Sharp corners, straight edges, and flat planes intersect in ways that can be compared to architectural forms. In some areas, the angles between surfaces approach right angles. This creates intersections that appear precise. While natural processes can produce similar shapes, the repetition and clarity of these features invite comparison to human design. The presence of what appear to be steps or tiered levels is another point of interest. These levels descend in a sequence that feels measured, with each section connecting to the next in a consistent way. This arrangement can be interpreted as functional. This suggests movement between levels. This does not rely on random variation. The ability to move along these surfaces in a structured way adds to the impression of intentional design. Supporters of this perspective also consider how the formation is experienced when moving through it. Divers often describe a sense of navigation, where the structure can be followed along defined routes. Open areas lead into narrower sections, and pathways seem to guide movement across the formation. This experience of moving through the space contributes to the idea that it may have been organized with purpose. Another aspect that draws attention is the alignment of certain features across the structure. Straight lines extend over distances, connecting different sections in ways that appear consistent. These alignments can be seen as indicators of planning, where elements are positioned in relation to one another. While natural processes can produce linear features, the continuity of these lines across the formation is often noted. The possibility of human involvement also raises questions about the age of the formation. If the structure were to include elements shaped by human activity, it would suggest a period in which the site was above water or accessible in a different environmental context. Changes in sea level over long periods could have altered the landscape, submerging areas that were once exposed. This idea connects the Yonaguni Formation to broader discussions about how ancient environments have changed over time. Rising sea levels can transform coastal regions, covering areas that may have once supported human activity. Within this context, it becomes possible to consider whether the formation could represent something that existed before the current ocean conditions. At the same time, the absence of confirmed artifacts directly associated with the structure presents a challenge to this interpretation. In many archaeological sites, tools, carvings, or other evidence provide clear indicators of human presence. At Yonaguni, such evidence has not been definitively identified, which means that the interpretation relies primarily on the shape and arrangement of the structure itself. This reliance on visual features makes interpretation more complex. The same terraces, edges, and surfaces that suggest design can also be explained through natural processes. This overlap creates a situation where the evidence does not clearly support one conclusion over another, but instead allows for multiple possibilities to be considered. Some researchers propose that if human involvement exists, it may not account for the entire formation, but only certain aspects of it. In this view, natural rock could have been modified or adapted. This creates a combination of natural and altered features. This possibility introduces a middle ground between fully natural and fully constructed interpretations. The man-made theory does not claim certainty, but instead highlights the features that invite further consideration. It focuses on the aspects of the formation that appear most structured, using them as a basis for exploring alternative explanations. This approach keeps the discussion open. This allows the possibility of human influence to remain part of the conversation. At the same time, this perspective must be balanced with the understanding that natural processes are capable of producing complex and unexpected forms. The challenge lies in distinguishing between shapes that result from geological activity and those that might reflect deliberate action. This distinction is not always clear, particularly in an environment where erosion and fracturing can create structured appearances. The ongoing discussion around the Yonaguni Formation reflects this uncertainty. The features of the site continue to be examined from different angles, with each perspective offering a way to interpret what is seen. The man-made theory adds to this discussion by considering how the formation might be understood if human activity played a role. As the discussion around the Yonaguni Formation developed, one of the most important approaches used to understand it was comparison. Rather than viewing the structure in isolation, researchers began to examine how its features relate to both natural geological formations and known archaeological sites. This process does not aim to produce a final answer, but to place the formation within a broader context where its characteristics can be evaluated more clearly. When compared to natural rock formations, certain similarities become apparent. Sandstone formations in various parts of the world are known to fracture along flat plains, producing surfaces that can appear smooth and level. In coastal and underwater environments, erosion can further shape these surfaces, enhancing edges and this creates patterns that may appear structured. These natural examples demonstrate that flat terraces and sharp lines can form without human involvement. At the same time, differences can also be observed. Many natural formations that exhibit flat surfaces do so with a degree of irregularity, where the edges are less consistent and the transitions between levels are more varied. In contrast, the Yonaguni Formation presents areas where surfaces appear more continuous and edges maintain a clearer alignment over longer distances. This contrast becomes a point of interest when comparing the site to purely natural examples. Comparisons with known archaeological structures introduce another perspective. Human-made environments often include flat platforms, defined edges, and organized layouts that guide movement. These features are typically arranged with purpose. This creates spaces that serve specific functions. When observers look at Yonaguni through this lens, certain aspects of the formation resemble these patterns, particularly in the way surfaces connect and levels are arranged. However, the comparison is not exact. Archaeological sites usually contain additional evidence of human activity, such as carvings, tool marks, or artifacts that indicate deliberate construction. At Yonaguni, such evidence has not been clearly identified, which makes the comparison more limited. The structure may resemble certain architectural features, but it does not provide the same level of supporting detail that is found in confirmed human-made sites. The process of comparison also involves examining scale and proportion. In natural formations, patterns may repeat, but often vary in size and orientation. In constructed environments, proportions are typically more controlled, with consistent relationships between different elements. The Yonaguni Formation shows aspects of both, where repetition exists alongside variation, making it difficult to categorize within a single framework. Another important factor is the alignment of features across the structure. In some areas of Yonaguni, straight lines extend across multiple sections. This creates a sense of continuity. When compared to natural formations, these alignments can appear more pronounced, while in comparison to constructed sites, they may seem less precise. This intermediate quality places the formation between clear categories, reinforcing the need for careful evaluation. Comparative analysis also considers how formations develop over time. Natural structures are shaped gradually, influenced by erosion, sediment movement, and environmental conditions. Constructed environments, on the other hand, are typically formed over shorter periods through deliberate action. The Yonaguni Formation presents features that could result from long-term natural processes, but which also resemble forms that are usually associated with intentional design. The role of perspective is important in this process. When viewed from certain angles, the formation may appear more structured, emphasizing its flat planes and sharp edges. From other viewpoints, irregularities become more noticeable, revealing variations that align with natural formation patterns. This shifting perception influences how comparisons are made, as different observers may focus on different aspects of the structure. Researchers also compare Yonaguni to other underwater formations that have been studied in similar environments. In some cases, natural rock formations beneath the sea exhibit features that resemble steps, terraces, or walls. These examples provide a basis for understanding how water, pressure, and geological composition can produce structured appearances. At the same time, the scale and clarity of the Yonaguni Formation continue to distinguish it from many of these examples. The comparison between natural and constructed features is not intended to eliminate one possibility in favor of another, but to understand where the formation fits within a range of known patterns. By examining similarities and differences, researchers can identify which aspects of the structure align with established processes and which remain less easily explained. This approach highlights the complexity of interpreting the Yonaguni Formation. The structure does not fully match any single category, but instead shares characteristics with multiple types of formations. This overlap creates a situation where conclusions cannot be drawn from comparison alone, but must be supported by additional evidence. The value of comparative analysis lies in its ability to provide context. Without comparison, the formation might be judged based only on its immediate appearance. By placing it alongside other examples, both natural and constructed, its features can be evaluated more thoroughly. This process helps clarify which elements are common and which are unusual. At the same time, comparison has its limits. Even when similarities are identified, they do not necessarily indicate the same origin. Natural processes can produce shapes that resemble those created by humans, and human designs can sometimes reflect patterns found in nature. This overlap means that comparison must be used carefully, without assuming that resemblance equals cause. The ongoing use of comparative analysis reflects the need to approach the Yonaguni Formation from multiple perspectives. Each comparison adds a layer of understanding, contributing to a broader picture of how the structure might be interpreted. This layered approach is essential for studying a site that does not present a single clear explanation. The underwater conditions surrounding the Yonaguni Formation play a central role in how the site is experienced, observed, and understood. Unlike environments on land, where surfaces are seen directly and without distortion, the ocean introduces layers of movement, light, and depth that shape perception in subtle but continuous ways. These conditions do not simply frame the formation, but interact with it, influencing how its features appear at any given moment. The depth of the formation is within a range that allows divers to reach it without the need for specialized deep-sea equipment, yet it is still far enough below the surface to create a distinct underwater environment. As a diver descends, the transition from surface light to filtered illumination becomes immediately noticeable. Colors begin to shift, with reds fading first, followed by other tones, leaving the stone surfaces in more muted shades of blue and gray. This gradual change draws attention away from color and toward form, emphasizing the shapes and structures of the formation. Water clarity is one of the defining characteristics of the Yonaguni site. On days when conditions are calm, visibility can extend across significant distances. This allows the formation to be seen as a continuous structure. This does not rely on as disconnected sections. This clarity makes it possible to observe how different parts of the formation relate to one another, revealing the scale and arrangement of its features. At the same time, clarity is not constant, and changes in water conditions can alter how much of the structure is visible. Ocean currents move steadily through the area. This creates a constant sense of motion within the environment. These currents influence not only the movement of divers, but also the way the formation is approached and observed. At times, the flow of water may guide movement along certain paths, while at other moments, it may require adjustments in position. This interaction between current and movement adds a dynamic element to the experience of the site. The presence of currents also affects how sediment is distributed across the seabed. Fine particles carried by the water can settle on surfaces, temporarily altering their appearance. In some areas, sediment may collect in small amounts, softening edges and filling shallow depressions. In other areas, stronger currents may keep surfaces clear, exposing the underlying stone. This variation contributes to the changing visual texture of the formation. Light behaves differently underwater than it does in open air. As sunlight passes through the surface, it is refracted and scattered. This creates shifting patterns that move across the formation. These patterns change with the movement of the water, producing a subtle and continuous variation in brightness. Edges may appear more defined when illuminated directly, while deeper sections remain in shadow, adding contrast and depth to the structure. The angle of the sun also influences how the formation is seen. At certain times of day, light reaches deeper into the water, illuminating larger portions of the structure. At other times, the angle is lower, and shadows become more prominent. These changes mean that the formation does not appear exactly the same at all times, but presents different aspects depending on the conditions. Marine life is an integral part of the underwater environment at Yonaguni. Fish move through the open spaces, often following the contours of the formation as they navigate the area. Smaller organisms attach themselves to sections of the stone, adding texture to the surfaces. This presence of life introduces movement across the otherwise stable structure. This creates a contrast between the stillness of the formation and the activity of the surrounding environment. The interaction between marine life and the formation does not alter its overall shape, but it contributes to how it is experienced. The movement of fish along edges and across flat surfaces can draw attention to specific features, guiding the observer's focus. At the same time, the presence of living organisms reinforces the fact that the formation exists within an active ecosystem. Sound behaves differently underwater, adding another layer to the environment. While not always the focus of observation, the muffled and distant quality of sound beneath the surface creates a sense of separation from the world above. This quiet atmosphere enhances the experience of the formation. This allows attention to remain on its visual and spatial qualities. The pressure of the water increases with depth. This creates a physical sensation that is part of the diving experience. This pressure does not affect the structure itself, but it influences how divers move and interact with the environment. Movements become more deliberate, and the pace of exploration slows, encouraging a careful and steady observation of the formation. Visibility can change over time due to weather conditions, water movement, and seasonal variation. Storms can disturb the seabed, reducing clarity and making it more difficult to see the formation in detail. In contrast, calm periods allow the water to settle, restoring visibility and revealing the structure more clearly. These fluctuations mean that the formation is not always experienced under the same conditions. The relationship between the formation and the surrounding water is continuous. The ocean does not remain separate from the structure, but interacts with it at every moment. Currents shape surfaces, light defines edges, and marine life moves across its features. This constant interaction ensures that the formation is part of a living environment, where change occurs gradually over time. The underwater conditions also influence how the formation is documented and studied. Photographs and videos capture only a moment in time, reflecting the conditions present at that specific instance. Variations in light, clarity, and movement mean that different recordings may show the structure in slightly different ways. This variability must be considered when interpreting visual evidence. The experience of being underwater changes the sense of scale. Distances can appear shorter or longer depending on visibility, and the absence of familiar reference points can make it difficult to judge size. As divers move closer to the formation, its true scale becomes more apparent, revealing surfaces that extend beyond initial perception. This gradual revelation adds to the sense of depth within the environment. The combination of depth, light, movement, and living elements creates a setting where observation requires attention to changing conditions. The formation is always present, but how it is seen depends on these factors. This dynamic environment means that each visit to the site may reveal new details, even when the structure itself remains unchanged. Understanding the underwater conditions at Yonaguni provides an essential context for interpreting the formation. The environment shapes perception, influences visibility, and contributes to how features are experienced. Without considering these conditions, it would be difficult to fully appreciate how the structure appears beneath the water. As observation moves closer to the surface of the Yonaguni Formation, the details of its structure begin to reveal a level of clarity that draws continued attention. These details are not limited to broad terraces or large plains, but extend into the smaller features that define how each section connects to the next. The closer the formation is examined, the more its edges, corners, and transitions begin to shape the overall impression of its form. One of the most striking aspects of the structure is the presence of defined corners where surfaces meet. These corners do not appear rounded or worn into gradual curves, but instead form clear intersections that separate one plane from another. In certain areas, the angles between surfaces approach what appears to be a right angle. This creates a sense of precision in how the planes connect. This clarity of intersection contributes to the impression that the structure follows a consistent pattern. Edges extend across the formation in long, uninterrupted lines. These edges mark the boundaries between levels, defining where one surface ends and another begins. Rather than fading into irregular shapes, these lines maintain a degree of continuity that can be followed visually across sections of the structure. This continuity reinforces the sense that the formation is composed of connected elements. This does not rely on isolated fragments. The flat surfaces themselves are not entirely uniform, but they maintain a level of consistency that allows them to be recognized as part of a larger arrangement. Some areas appear smoother, while others show slight variations in texture, but the overall shape of each plane remains stable. These surfaces provide the foundation for the structure, supporting the edges and corners that define its form. Vertical drops between levels create distinct separations within the formation. These drops vary in height, but often appear as sharp transitions. This does not rely on gradual slopes. The presence of these vertical sections contributes to the layered appearance of the structure, where each level is clearly defined. This layering adds depth to the formation. This allows it to be experienced in 3 dimensions. This does not rely on as a flat surface. In some sections, the arrangement of these features creates what appears to be a sequence of steps. These steps are not identical in size, but they follow a pattern that suggests repetition. Each level connects to the next through a defined edge, forming a progression that can be traced across the structure. This stepped appearance is one of the most frequently noted characteristics of the formation. The alignment of edges and surfaces across different sections contributes to the sense of organization within the structure. Lines that begin in one area often continue into another. This creates a visual connection between separate parts of the formation. This alignment allows the structure to be understood as a continuous system. This does not rely on as a collection of independent features. Corners and edges also influence how light interacts with the formation. When illuminated, these features cast shadows that emphasize their shape, making the structure appear more defined. The contrast between light and shadow highlights the geometry of the formation, drawing attention to the lines that shape its form. This interaction enhances the visibility of details that might otherwise be less noticeable. The transitions between surfaces are not always identical, adding variation to the structure. Some edges appear sharper and more defined, while others show signs of slight irregularity. These differences create a balance between consistency and variation, where the overall pattern is maintained while individual sections display unique characteristics. As divers move along the formation, the arrangement of these structural details creates a sense of orientation. Edges guide movement, corners mark changes in direction, and flat surfaces provide areas of stability. This interaction between structure and movement allows the formation to be experienced as a space that can be navigated. This does not rely on simply observed. In certain areas, the surfaces appear to form larger shapes that extend beyond individual planes. These larger shapes are defined by the alignment of edges and the connection of surfaces. This creates sections that feel unified. This grouping of features contributes to the impression that the structure is organized on multiple levels, from small details to larger arrangements. The presence of straight lines across the formation continues to be a defining characteristic. These lines are not limited to a single direction, but intersect and extend in ways that create a network of edges across the structure. This network forms a framework that holds the formation together, providing a visual structure that can be followed across its surface. Despite the clarity of these features, the formation does not present itself as perfectly uniform. Variations in surface texture, slight shifts in alignment, and differences in edge definition introduce complexity into the structure. These variations prevent the formation from appearing entirely regular, adding depth to its overall appearance. The scale of the structural details becomes more apparent when observed in relation to a diver's movement. Edges that appear small from a distance reveal themselves to be much larger when approached closely. Corners extend further than expected, and surfaces cover wider areas than initially perceived. This change in scale adds to the sense of immersion within the structure. The combination of defined edges, clear corners, flat surfaces, and vertical transitions creates a formation that is both structured and complex. Each element contributes to the overall arrangement, forming a system that can be observed from multiple perspectives. The repetition of these features across the site reinforces their importance in defining the structure. At the same time, the presence of these details does not provide a single explanation for the formation. The clarity of the shapes invites interpretation, but does not resolve it. The structure remains open to different perspectives, where observation leads to questions. This does not rely on conclusions. Understanding these structural details provides a closer view of the formation. This allows its features to be examined in depth. The edges, corners, and surfaces form the basis of how the structure is perceived, shaping the way it is experienced beneath the water. The appearance of the Yonaguni Formation is not only defined by its original structure, but also by the ongoing effects of erosion. Beneath the ocean, water is never still, and over long periods of time, its movement gradually shapes the surfaces it touches. This process does not happen quickly, but through continuous interaction, where small changes accumulate and alter the formation in subtle but meaningful ways. Water moving across the seabed carries fine particles of sediment, which act as a natural abrasive. As these particles pass over the surfaces of the formation, They wear away small irregularities, smoothing certain areas while leaving others more defined. This process can enhance the clarity of flat plains, making them appear more even and continuous over time. At the same time, erosion does not act uniformly across the structure. Differences in current strength, direction, and exposure create variations in how surfaces are shaped. Some areas experience stronger flow. This can remove sediment and keep edges more exposed, while other sections remain more protected. This allows particles to settle and soften the appearance of the stone. This uneven process contributes to the variation seen across the formation. Cracks and fractures within the rock play an important role in how erosion develops. These natural lines of weakness provide pathways where water can move more easily, gradually widening the spaces between sections of stone. Over time, these cracks can become more pronounced. This creates edges and separations that define the structure. This process can give the impression that the formation has been divided into distinct blocks or levels. The interaction between water and rock also influences the sharpness of edges. In some areas, erosion can refine an edge, removing small fragments and leaving behind a cleaner line. In other areas, the same process can wear down the edge, making it appear less defined. This balance between sharpening and softening creates a range of appearances within the formation, where some features stand out clearly while others appear more subtle. Vertical surfaces are affected by erosion in ways that differ from horizontal planes. As water moves downward along these faces, it can create patterns of wear that follow the direction of flow. This can result in surfaces that appear smoother in some sections and more textured in others. The variation in these patterns adds complexity to how the vertical elements of the formation are perceived. Over extended periods, erosion can contribute to the development of stepped features. As different layers of rock respond to water movement at varying rates, some sections may wear away more quickly than others. This difference in erosion can create a sequence of levels where one surface sits slightly below another. The result is a pattern that resembles terraces or steps, even when formed entirely through natural processes. The composition of the rock influences how erosion takes place. Sandstone, which is believed to make up much of the Yonaguni Formation, is composed of compacted grains that can be worn away gradually. This type of rock responds to erosion in a way that can produce both smooth surfaces and defined edges, depending on how it is exposed to moving water. The interaction between the material and the environment shapes the final appearance of the structure. Ocean currents also contribute to the directional nature of erosion. Water does not move randomly, but follows patterns that can influence how the formation is shaped over time. In areas where currents are stronger, surfaces may be more exposed and edges more pronounced. In calmer sections, the accumulation of sediment may create a softer appearance, reducing the visibility of certain features. The presence of marine life can also affect the surface of the formation, although in more subtle ways. Organisms that attach to the rock can create small changes in texture, while the movement of larger creatures may disturb sediment and expose different areas of the stone. These interactions do not significantly alter the overall structure, but they contribute to the ongoing process of change. Erosion is not limited to a single moment, but continues as long as the formation remains within the ocean environment. Each passing current, each shift in sediment, and each change in water movement adds to the gradual transformation of the structure. This continuous process means that the formation seen today is the result of both its original formation and the cumulative effects of erosion over time. The visibility of erosion can influence how the formation is interpreted. Smooth surfaces and defined edges may appear more structured, while irregular areas may seem more natural. These variations can shape perception, as observers may focus on different aspects of the structure depending on what stands out most clearly. At the same time, erosion can obscure certain features, making it more difficult to determine how the formation originally appeared. Edges that were once sharper may become rounded, and surfaces that were once distinct may blend into one another. This gradual change can make it challenging to distinguish between features that are part of the original structure and those that have been altered over time. The interaction between erosion and the existing structure creates a dynamic relationship, where the formation is constantly being reshaped in small ways. This process does not erase the overall form, but modifies it, adding layers of change that reflect the influence of the environment. The result is a structure that carries both its original characteristics and the effects of ongoing transformation. Understanding erosion provides an important perspective on the Yonaguni Formation. It highlights how natural processes can create, refine, and alter features in ways that may appear structured. At the same time, it shows how these processes can complicate interpretation, as the original form of the structure becomes less clear over time. The presence of erosion does not provide a complete explanation for the formation, but it offers insight into how its features may have developed and changed. By considering the role of water movement, sediment, and rock composition, it becomes possible to see how the structure could evolve within its environment. As the Yonaguni Formation continues to be observed and studied, one of the most important factors influencing how it is understood is not found within the structure itself, but within the way it is perceived. Human perception plays a central role in shaping interpretation, as the mind naturally seeks to recognize patterns, assign meaning, and organize visual information into familiar forms. This process occurs automatically, often without conscious awareness, and can influence how complex shapes are understood. When viewing a formation such as Yonaguni, the presence of straight lines, flat surfaces, and defined edges can trigger associations with structures that are commonly seen in constructed environments. These features align with patterns that the human mind is accustomed to recognizing, such as walls, steps, and platforms. As a result, the formation may be interpreted through a framework that emphasizes order and design, even when those features could arise through natural processes. This tendency to recognize familiar patterns is a fundamental aspect of perception. The brain processes visual information by comparing what is seen to existing knowledge, identifying similarities that help make sense of the environment. This allows for quick interpretation, but it also means that ambiguous forms can be understood in multiple ways, depending on the observer's perspective and expectations. At Yonaguni, this process becomes particularly relevant because the formation includes features that resemble both natural and constructed elements. Flat plains can be seen as natural fracture surfaces or as platforms, while vertical drops can be interpreted as geological formations or as walls. The same visual information supports different interpretations depending on how it is processed. Expectation also plays a role in shaping perception. When observers approach the formation with the idea that it might represent something unusual or significant, they may be more likely to notice features that support that idea. Conversely, those who expect to see a natural formation may focus on aspects that align with geological explanations. These expectations do not change the structure itself, but they influence which details are emphasized. The underwater environment adds another layer to this process. Light, movement, and visibility can alter how shapes are seen, sometimes enhancing certain features while obscuring others. Shifting patterns of light can highlight edges and surfaces, making them appear more defined, while shadows can create the impression of depth or separation. These visual effects contribute to how the formation is interpreted in real time. Perspective is also an important factor. The angle from which the formation is viewed can change the way its features appear. A surface that looks flat and continuous from one position may reveal variations when seen from another. Similarly, edges that appear straight at a distance may show irregularities when examined more closely. This variation in perspective means that perception is not fixed, but changes with movement and position. The scale of the formation can further influence interpretation. Without clear reference points, it can be difficult to judge the size of features accurately. What appears to be a small step may actually be a large drop, and what seems like a narrow edge may extend over a considerable distance. This uncertainty in scale can affect how the structure is understood, as it shapes the perceived relationship between different elements. Human perception also tends to organize visual information into coherent groups. When multiple features align in similar ways, the mind may interpret them as part of a unified system. At Yonaguni, the repetition of terraces, edges, and levels can create a sense of order, reinforcing the impression that the formation follows a consistent pattern. This grouping effect contributes to the perception of structure, even when variations exist. At the same time, the mind may overlook irregularities that do not fit within this perceived pattern. Small variations in edge alignment or surface texture may be less noticeable when the overall impression suggests consistency. This selective attention can strengthen certain interpretations while minimizing others, shaping how the formation is understood. The concept of pattern recognition is not limited to visual perception, but extends to how meaning is assigned to what is seen. Observers may interpret shapes based on familiar experiences, associating them with known structures or environments. This process can make the formation feel more understandable, but it can also introduce assumptions that go beyond the available evidence. In the case of Yonaguni, the presence of geometric shapes creates a situation where perception plays a particularly strong role. Straight lines and angles are often associated with deliberate construction, making them more likely to be interpreted as intentional. However, these same shapes can also occur naturally under certain conditions. This creates an overlap between perception and possibility. The influence of perception does not diminish the significance of the formation, but it highlights the need for careful observation. Recognizing how interpretation is shaped allows for a more balanced approach, where features are considered in context. This does not rely on assumed to have a single meaning. This awareness helps maintain an open perspective when examining complex structures. Scientific study attempts to account for these perceptual influences by focusing on measurable characteristics. By analyzing dimensions, composition, and patterns in a systematic way, researchers aim to separate observation from interpretation. This approach provides a framework for understanding the formation that is less dependent on individual perception. Even with this approach, perception remains a part of the process. The interpretation of data still involves decisions about how features are categorized and understood. This means that perception cannot be entirely removed, but can be managed through careful analysis and comparison. The Yonaguni Formation serves as an example of how perception and observation interact. The structure presents features that invite interpretation, while also requiring careful examination to understand their origin. This balance between what is seen and how it is understood is central to the ongoing discussion. By considering the role of perception, it becomes possible to approach the formation with greater awareness. Rather than focusing solely on whether the structure is natural or human-made, attention can be directed toward how those possibilities are interpreted. This perspective adds depth to the study of the formation. This allows for a more thoughtful and measured approach. As interest in the Yonaguni Formation increased, the approach to understanding it moved from observation alone to more structured scientific study. Researchers began to examine the site using methods designed to gather measurable information. This allows the formation to be analyzed in a more systematic way. This shift introduced a new layer of understanding, where the focus extended beyond what could be seen to how the features could be documented, compared, and interpreted within established frameworks. One of the first steps in scientific study involves careful mapping of the formation. By recording the positions of edges, surfaces, and levels, researchers create a representation of how the structure is arranged across the seabed. This process requires repeated observation, as the full extent of the formation cannot be captured in a single view. Divers move across the site, noting changes in elevation and alignment, gradually building a detailed picture of the structure. Measurements play an important role in this process. The dimensions of surfaces, the height of vertical drops, and the angles between planes are recorded to provide objective data. These measurements allow researchers to compare the formation to known geological structures, identifying similarities and differences that can inform interpretation. By focusing on measurable characteristics, the study becomes less dependent on individual perception. Photographic and video documentation are also essential tools in the study of the formation. Cameras capture the structure from multiple angles, preserving details that can be examined later. These visual records allow researchers to revisit specific features, compare observations over time, and share information with others who may not be able to visit the site directly. The ability to analyze images repeatedly contributes to a more thorough understanding of the formation. Advances in imaging technology have expanded the ways in which the site can be studied. Techniques that allow for the creation of detailed visual models provide a way to examine the structure in 3 dimensions. These models can represent the formation as a continuous surface, making it easier to observe how different parts connect. This approach helps reveal patterns that may not be immediately apparent during a single dive. Geological analysis focuses on the composition of the rock itself. By examining the material that forms the structure, researchers can determine how it was created and how it responds to environmental conditions. The identification of sandstone as a primary component provides insight into how the formation may have developed, as this type of rock is known to fracture and erode in specific ways. The study of fractures within the rock is particularly important. These fractures indicate how the material has responded to pressure and movement over time. By analyzing the direction and spacing of these fractures, researchers can identify patterns that may explain the formation of flat surfaces and sharp edges. This analysis helps connect the visible features of the structure to underlying geological processes. Erosion patterns are also examined as part of scientific study. The way surfaces have been worn by water movement provides clues about how the formation has changed over time. By identifying areas where erosion is more or less pronounced, researchers can understand how environmental factors influence the appearance of the structure. This information contributes to a more complete picture of how the formation has evolved. Another aspect of study involves comparing the Yonaguni Formation to other geological sites. By identifying similar features in different locations, researchers can determine whether the patterns observed at Yonaguni are unique or part of a broader set of natural formations. This comparative approach helps place the structure within a wider context, providing additional perspective on its characteristics. The underwater environment presents challenges for scientific study. Conditions such as water movement, limited visibility, and depth require careful planning and specialized equipment. Divers must work within these constraints, ensuring that observations are accurate while maintaining safety. These challenges influence how data is collected and how the site is explored. Repeated visits to the formation are necessary to confirm observations and gather additional information. Each dive provides an opportunity to refine previous findings, identify new details, and verify measurements. This ongoing process ensures that the study remains consistent and reliable, reducing the likelihood of misinterpretation. Collaboration between researchers is another important aspect of scientific study. Different perspectives and areas of expertise contribute to a more comprehensive understanding of the formation. Geologists, divers, and other specialists work together to interpret the data, combining their knowledge to build a clearer picture of the site. The interpretation of data requires careful consideration. Measurements, images, and observations must be analyzed in relation to one another, ensuring that conclusions are based on consistent evidence. This process involves evaluating how different pieces of information fit together, identifying patterns that support or challenge existing explanations. At the same time, scientific study recognizes the limits of available data. Not all aspects of the formation can be observed directly, and some features may be influenced by factors that are not fully understood. This awareness encourages a cautious approach, where interpretations are presented as possibilities. This does not rely on definitive answers. The use of scientific methods provides a structured way to approach the Yonaguni Formation. By focusing on measurable characteristics and repeatable observations, researchers can build an understanding that is grounded in evidence. This approach helps separate observation from interpretation. This allows the formation to be studied with greater clarity. However, the presence of data does not eliminate uncertainty. The same measurements and observations can sometimes be interpreted in different ways, depending on the perspective applied. This means that scientific study contributes to the discussion without necessarily resolving it completely. The ongoing study of the Yonaguni Formation reflects the complexity of the site. Each method of analysis adds to the understanding, while also highlighting areas where further research is needed. This process continues to evolve as new techniques and information become available. Beyond the primary perspectives that frame the Yonaguni Formation as either natural or influenced by human activity, a range of alternative interpretations has developed over time. These interpretations do not always follow a single line of reasoning, but instead reflect different ways of approaching a structure that does not fit easily into familiar categories. Each perspective attempts to account for the features of the formation while acknowledging the uncertainty that surrounds it. Some interpretations focus on the idea that the formation represents a combination of natural processes and localized modification. In this view, the underlying rock may have formed through geological activity, while certain surfaces or edges could have been altered in more limited ways. This approach does not suggest a fully constructed site, but instead considers the possibility that natural features were adapted or emphasized over time. The concept of partial modification introduces a middle ground between fully natural and fully constructed explanations. It allows for the presence of structured features without requiring that the entire formation be the result of deliberate design. This perspective reflects the complexity of interpreting a site where different processes may overlap. This creates features that are not easily attributed to a single cause. Other interpretations consider the role of long-term environmental change in shaping how the formation is understood. Changes in sea level over extended periods could have altered the landscape, submerging areas that were once above water. Within this context, it becomes possible to imagine that features now found beneath the sea may have existed in a different setting in the past. This idea does not confirm human involvement, but expands the range of possibilities that can be considered. There are also interpretations that focus on how natural processes can produce patterns that appear highly structured. Certain types of rock formations can develop repeating shapes, where fractures and erosion create sequences of terraces and edges. In these cases, the appearance of order arises from the interaction of consistent forces acting over time. This does not rely on from deliberate arrangement. This perspective emphasizes the ability of natural systems to produce forms that resemble design. Some observers explore the idea that perception itself plays a central role in shaping interpretation. The human tendency to recognize patterns can lead to the identification of features that appear meaningful, even when they arise from natural variation. This approach does not deny the presence of structured elements, but suggests that their significance may be influenced by how they are viewed. The combination of these perspectives highlights the difficulty of assigning a single interpretation to the Yonaguni Formation. Each approach offers a way of understanding the structure, but none fully accounts for all of its features. This creates a situation where multiple interpretations can exist simultaneously, each supported by different aspects of observation. Alternative interpretations often emerge in response to the limitations of more established explanations. When natural processes do not seem to explain every feature, or when the idea of construction lacks direct evidence, additional perspectives are considered. These interpretations attempt to bridge gaps in understanding, offering ways to reconcile observations that do not fit neatly into one category. The presence of multiple interpretations reflects the open nature of the site. Unlike formations that can be clearly classified, Yonaguni presents a set of features that invite continued examination. This openness encourages a range of viewpoints, each contributing to the ongoing discussion. At the same time, alternative interpretations must be approached with care. Without clear evidence, it can be difficult to distinguish between possibilities that are grounded in observation and those that rely more heavily on speculation. Maintaining a balanced perspective requires focusing on what can be supported while remaining open to new information. The role of evidence remains central to evaluating these interpretations. Measurements, observations, and comparisons provide a basis for understanding the formation, even when they do not lead to a definitive conclusion. By grounding interpretation in observable features, it becomes possible to explore different perspectives without losing connection to the structure itself. Some interpretations also consider how the formation fits within broader patterns of natural and cultural history. By examining how similar features appear in other contexts, researchers can identify whether the patterns seen at Yonaguni are unique or part of a larger set of phenomena. This broader view helps place the formation within a wider framework. The ongoing discussion around alternative interpretations reflects the evolving nature of understanding. As new information becomes available and methods of study improve, perspectives may shift, leading to new ways of interpreting the site. This process is not static, but continues to develop over time. The Yonaguni Formation serves as a reminder that not all structures can be easily explained. Its features challenge simple classification, encouraging a more thoughtful approach to observation and interpretation. Rather than providing a clear answer, it offers an opportunity to explore how different perspectives can coexist. By considering alternative interpretations, the formation can be viewed from multiple angles, each adding depth to the overall understanding. This layered approach allows for a more complete appreciation of the structure, where different possibilities are examined without requiring a single conclusion. Understanding the Yonaguni Formation also involves looking beyond its immediate structure and considering the broader historical context of the region in which it exists. This context is not defined by a single event, but by long-term changes in environment, geography, and human presence that have shaped the surrounding area over extended periods of time. By examining these factors, it becomes possible to place the formation within a wider framework that adds depth to how it is understood. Yonaguni Island is part of a chain of islands that extend across the southwestern edge of Japan, positioned within a region influenced by both the Pacific Ocean and the East China Sea. This location has been shaped by geological activity, where movements of the Earth's crust have created shifts in land and seabed over long periods. These processes contribute to the formation of underwater landscapes, including areas where rock structures are exposed or altered by environmental conditions. Sea levels have not remained constant throughout history. Over thousands of years, changes in climate and environmental conditions have caused water levels to rise and fall, altering the shape of coastlines and the extent of land areas. During periods when sea levels were lower, regions that are now underwater may have been exposed, forming part of the visible landscape. As sea levels rose, these areas became submerged, changing how they are experienced and observed. This pattern of rising and falling sea levels is an important consideration when examining underwater formations. It introduces the possibility that features currently beneath the ocean may have existed in a different context in the past. However, this possibility does not provide direct evidence of human activity, but rather expands the range of environmental conditions that may have influenced the formation. The region around Yonaguni has also been shaped by natural forces such as storms, currents, and seismic activity. These forces contribute to the ongoing transformation of both land and sea environments. Storms can alter the seabed by shifting sediment, while currents continue to shape rock surfaces through erosion. Seismic activity can create fractures and changes in elevation, influencing how formations develop over time. Human presence in the broader region has a long history, with evidence of settlement across parts of the Japanese archipelago and nearby areas. These communities have interacted with their environments in various ways, adapting to changing conditions and using available resources. While this history provides context for how humans have engaged with the landscape, it does not directly connect to the Yonaguni Formation without additional supporting evidence. The distance of Yonaguni from larger population centers contributes to its relative isolation. This isolation has influenced how the area has been explored and studied, as access requires deliberate effort. The formation itself remained largely unknown outside of local observation until relatively recent times, which reflects the challenges of studying remote underwater environments. Historical context also includes the development of knowledge about the ocean and its features. Advances in diving and exploration have made it possible to observe areas that were previously inaccessible. These developments have expanded understanding of underwater landscapes. This allows formations like Yonaguni to be studied in greater detail. The interpretation of the Yonaguni Formation is influenced by this broader historical framework. Changes in environment, advances in exploration, and the presence of human activity in nearby regions all contribute to how the site is understood. Each of these factors provides context, but does not determine a single explanation for the formation. The relationship between past and present conditions is an important aspect of this context. The environment seen today is the result of long-term processes that have shaped the region over time. Understanding these processes helps explain how the formation could have developed within its current setting. At the same time, historical context introduces the idea that environments are not fixed, but change over time. This means that the conditions under which the formation originally developed may differ from those observed today. Recognizing this possibility adds depth to the study of the site. This allows for a broader range of interpretations. The Yonaguni Formation exists within this evolving landscape, where natural processes and historical changes intersect. Its features reflect both the conditions of its formation and the transformations that have occurred since then. This layered history contributes to the complexity of understanding the site. The absence of definitive evidence linking the formation to a specific historical event or activity highlights the importance of careful interpretation. While context provides valuable insight, it does not replace the need for direct observation and analysis. Each piece of information must be considered in relation to the others forming a balanced view of the site. The study of historical context therefore complements the examination of the formation itself. It provides a background against which the structure can be understood, adding perspective without determining a final conclusion. This approach allows the formation to be considered within a wider framework, where multiple factors contribute to its interpretation. By looking at the broader history of the region, it becomes possible to see how the Yonaguni Formation fits within a landscape that has been shaped by both natural forces and human presence. This perspective does not resolve the question of its origin, but adds depth to the process of understanding. The Yonaguni Formation continues to be the subject of an ongoing debate, where different perspectives exist side by side without reaching a single, agreed-upon conclusion. This discussion is not defined by a clear division between opposing sides, but by a range of interpretations that approach the same features in different ways. Each perspective draws on observation, comparison, and analysis, yet the formation remains open to multiple readings. At the center of this debate is the question of how the structure should be understood. The natural formation perspective emphasizes geological processes, pointing to the ways in which rock can fracture and erode to produce flat surfaces and defined edges. From this viewpoint, the features of the formation can be explained through known patterns of natural development, without requiring additional assumptions. At the same time, the interpretation that considers the possibility of human influence focuses on the arrangement and appearance of the structure. The alignment of surfaces, the repetition of levels, and the presence of sharp angles are seen as features that resemble constructed environments. This perspective does not necessarily reject natural processes, but suggests that they may not fully account for every aspect of what is observed. The debate is shaped by how evidence is interpreted. The same measurements, images, and observations are examined through different frameworks, leading to different conclusions. A flat surface may be understood as a natural fracture plane or as a platform, depending on the perspective applied. This flexibility in interpretation allows the discussion to remain open, as no single explanation fully resolves the features of the formation. Communication between researchers and observers contributes to the development of this debate. Findings are shared, compared, and discussed. This creates a process where ideas are examined and refined. This exchange does not always lead to agreement, but it allows different perspectives to be considered in relation to one another. The role of uncertainty is an important aspect of this discussion. The absence of definitive evidence linking the formation to a specific origin means that conclusions must be approached with caution. Rather than providing a clear answer, the available information supports a range of possibilities, each of which remains subject to further examination. The debate is also influenced by the methods used to study the formation. Geological analysis, mapping, and visual documentation provide data that can be interpreted in different ways. The choice of method and the focus of analysis can shape how the formation is understood, highlighting certain features while leaving others less emphasized. Public interest in the Yonaguni Formation adds another layer to the discussion. The idea of an underwater structure that may or may not be connected to human activity captures attention, encouraging a wide range of interpretations. This interest brings additional perspectives into the conversation, expanding the scope of the debate beyond academic study. At the same time, maintaining a careful and balanced approach remains essential. The presence of interest does not determine the origin of the formation, and interpretations must continue to be grounded in observation and analysis. This balance helps ensure that the discussion remains focused on understanding. This does not rely on assumption. The debate surrounding Yonaguni is not static, but continues to evolve as new information becomes available. Advances in technology, additional observations, and ongoing study all contribute to how the formation is understood. Each new piece of information has the potential to refine existing perspectives or introduce new ones. Despite this ongoing development, the formation has not been fully resolved within a single explanatory framework. The features that define the structure continue to support multiple interpretations, maintaining a level of uncertainty that is central to the discussion. This uncertainty is not a limitation, but a reflection of the complexity of the site. The coexistence of different perspectives highlights the importance of approaching the formation with an open mind. Rather than seeking a definitive answer, the focus remains on understanding how different explanations relate to the observed features. This approach allows the formation to be studied in a way that acknowledges its complexity. The continuing debate also reflects the broader process of inquiry, where questions lead to further exploration. This does not rely on immediate resolution. The Yonaguni Formation becomes part of this process, serving as a subject that encourages careful observation and thoughtful interpretation. This allows multiple perspectives to exist. The discussion remains dynamic, where ideas can be examined and reconsidered over time. This flexibility ensures that the formation continues to be explored from different angles, contributing to a deeper understanding of its characteristics. Exploration of the Yonaguni Formation is shaped by the experience of moving through an environment that is both structured and constantly in motion. Unlike observation from a fixed point, exploring the site requires gradual movement, where each section is revealed through careful progression. This process allows the formation to be experienced not as a single image, but as a sequence of connected spaces that unfold over time. Divers begin their descent from the surface, where the light is strongest and the movement of the water is most apparent. As they move downward, the surroundings begin to change. The brightness softens, the sounds become more distant, and the outlines of the seabed start to take shape. The formation does not appear all at once, but emerges slowly, its edges and surfaces becoming more defined as the distance closes. Approaching the structure, the first impression is often one of scale. What initially seems like a single feature expands into a larger arrangement of planes and levels. The surfaces extend outward, revealing connections that are not visible from a distance. This gradual expansion creates a sense of depth, where each movement forward reveals more of the structure. Movement across the formation is guided by its layout. Flat surfaces provide areas where divers can pause and observe, while edges and drops define transitions between levels. The arrangement of these features creates pathways that can be followed, leading from one section to another. This sense of direction allows the formation to be explored as a connected space. This does not rely on as separate points of interest. The presence of currents influences how exploration takes place. Water moving across the formation can guide movement along certain paths, while requiring adjustments in position at other times. Divers must remain aware of this movement, using it to maintain balance and control as they navigate the structure. This interaction adds a dynamic element to the experience, where movement is shaped by both the formation and the surrounding water. Visibility plays a key role in exploration. On days when the water is clear, the formation can be seen across larger distances. This allows divers to plan their movement and observe how different sections connect. In conditions where visibility is reduced, the experience becomes more focused on immediate surroundings, where each feature is encountered at closer range. This variation changes how the formation is experienced, offering different perspectives depending on the conditions. As divers move along the terraces, the repetition of levels becomes more apparent. Each step down reveals another surface, another edge, another transition that continues the pattern. This repetition creates a rhythm within the exploration, where the structure unfolds in a sequence that can be followed and understood through movement. The edges and corners of the formation provide reference points that help orient movement. Straight lines guide direction, while intersections mark changes in path. These features allow divers to maintain a sense of position within the structure, even as the environment shifts with the movement of water and light. Light filtering from above continues to shape the experience. As it passes over the surfaces, it highlights certain areas while leaving others in shadow. These changes in illumination draw attention to different features, revealing details that might otherwise remain less visible. The shifting patterns of light add variation to the exploration, where the same section can appear differently over time. Marine life contributes to the sense of movement within the environment. Fish move along the edges and across the surfaces, often following the contours of the formation. Their presence adds a layer of activity that contrasts with the stillness of the stone. This creates a balance between motion and stability. The act of exploration requires a steady pace. Movements are deliberate. This allows time to observe the details of each section. This slower approach encourages careful attention, where the structure is experienced gradually. This does not rely on quickly. The pace of movement becomes part of the overall experience, shaping how the formation is understood. Different paths through the formation reveal different aspects of its structure. Approaching from one direction may emphasize the flat surfaces, while another path highlights the vertical drops and edges. This variation means that the formation does not present a single view, but a range of perspectives that change with movement. The depth of the site influences how long exploration can continue. Divers must remain aware of their time and position, balancing the desire to observe with the need to return to the surface safely. This limitation shapes the experience, where each dive provides only a portion of the full picture. Repeated visits allow for a more complete understanding of the formation. Each exploration builds on previous observations, adding new details and refining the sense of how the structure is arranged. Over time, these experiences combine to form a more comprehensive view of the site. The interaction between the diver and the formation is shaped by both movement and environment. The structure provides a framework for exploration, while the water, light, and surrounding conditions influence how that exploration takes place. This combination creates an experience that is both structured and variable. Exploration of the Yonaguni Formation does not produce a single definitive understanding, but instead offers a series of observations that contribute to a broader perspective. Each movement through the site reveals new details, while also reinforcing the patterns that define its structure. The experience of moving through the formation highlights its complexity. The combination of flat surfaces, defined edges, and layered levels creates a space that can be navigated and observed from multiple angles. This complexity encourages continued exploration, where each visit adds to the understanding of the site. As awareness of the Yonaguni Formation has grown, interest in the site has extended beyond the diving community into a wider audience. This expansion has not been driven by a single event, but by the gradual sharing of images, descriptions, and observations that reveal the structure to those who have not experienced it directly. Through this process, the formation has become known as a place that invites curiosity and continued attention. Photographs and video recordings have played a central role in this development. Visual documentation allows the structure to be seen from different angles, capturing the terraces, edges, and surfaces that define its appearance. These images provide a way for observers to engage with the formation without being physically present. This creates a connection that extends beyond the location itself. As these visuals circulate, they introduce the formation to audiences who may not be familiar with underwater environments. The clarity of the shapes and the scale of the structure often stand out, prompting questions about how such a formation came to exist. This initial curiosity becomes the starting point for further exploration, where observers seek to understand what they are seeing. The presentation of the Yonaguni Formation in different forms of media contributes to how it is perceived. Descriptions, images, and discussions can emphasize different aspects of the structure, shaping the way it is understood. Some presentations focus on the geometric features, while others highlight the natural setting or the process of exploration. Each perspective adds to the overall awareness of the site. Public interest is also influenced by the ongoing debate surrounding the formation. The presence of multiple interpretations encourages continued attention, as the question of its origin remains open. This uncertainty allows the formation to be discussed from different viewpoints, each contributing to a broader understanding. At the same time, maintaining a balanced perspective is important when presenting the site to a wider audience. The features of the formation can be described in ways that emphasize their structure without assigning a definitive explanation. This approach allows the formation to be appreciated for what can be observed, while leaving room for interpretation. The spread of information about Yonaguni reflects the ways in which knowledge is shared in a connected world. Images and descriptions move across platforms, reaching audiences who may have no direct connection to the site. This circulation expands the reach of the formation, making it part of a wider conversation about natural and underwater environments. The interest generated by the formation also leads to increased exploration and study. As more people become aware of the site, additional efforts are made to document and understand it. This continued attention contributes to the ongoing process of observation, where each new perspective adds to the existing body of knowledge. Educational discussions often include the Yonaguni Formation as an example of how interpretation and observation interact. The site provides a way to explore how different explanations can arise from the same set of features. highlighting the role of perspective in understanding complex structures. This makes it a useful point of reference in broader discussions about geology and perception. The formation also becomes part of a larger context of underwater exploration, where interest in submerged landscapes continues to grow. As more sites are discovered and documented, Yonaguni is considered alongside other formations, contributing to a broader understanding of what exists beneath the ocean surface. Public awareness does not resolve the questions surrounding the formation, but it keeps those questions active. The continued sharing of information ensures that the site remains a subject of interest, where new observations can be added and existing ideas can be reconsidered. The way the formation is represented influences how it is understood. Careful presentation that focuses on observation allows the structure to be appreciated without introducing unnecessary assumptions. This approach supports a more measured understanding, where curiosity is encouraged while maintaining a connection to the evidence. At the same time, the formation's presence within public awareness highlights the appeal of places that do not have simple explanations. The combination of clear features and open questions creates a sense of interest that encourages further exploration. This interest is sustained by the balance between what is known and what remains uncertain. The continued recognition of the Yonaguni Formation reflects its position as a site that invites observation and interpretation. It is not defined by a single narrative, but by the range of perspectives that engage with it. This openness allows the formation to remain relevant, where each new observation contributes to the broader understanding. As we move toward the conclusion, we turn to a final reflection on the Yonaguni Formation, considering how its structure, environment, and ongoing discussion come together to create a place where observation and interpretation remain closely connected. The Yonaguni Formation remains as a place where observation and interpretation exist side by side, shaped by both what can be seen and how it is understood. Its presence beneath the water does not offer a clear conclusion, but instead invites a slower way of looking, where details are considered carefully and meaning is allowed to develop over time. This balance between structure and uncertainty defines how the formation continues to be experienced. From the first moment it is observed, the formation presents features that appear organized and consistent. Flat surfaces extend across wide areas, edges define transitions between levels, and corners create intersections that shape the structure. These elements combine to form a space that feels connected, where each part relates to the others in a way that suggests continuity. At the same time, these same features can be understood through natural processes, where rock fractures and erosion produce similar forms. The surrounding environment plays a constant role in shaping how the formation is seen. Light filters through the water, highlighting surfaces and casting shadows that emphasize edges and depth. Currents move across the structure, carrying sediment and influencing how its features appear. Marine life moves through the space, adding motion to a setting that is otherwise defined by stillness. These elements do not exist separately from the formation, but interact with it, contributing to its overall presence. As the formation has been explored, its scale has become more apparent. What begins as a single feature reveals itself as part of a larger arrangement, where terraces, levels, and surfaces extend across the seabed. This gradual revelation reflects the nature of the site, where understanding develops through movement and repeated observation. This does not rely on through a single view. The process of studying the Yonaguni Formation has brought together different methods and perspectives. Mapping, measurement, and visual documentation provide ways to examine the structure in detail, while comparison with other formations offers context for its features. Each approach adds to the understanding of the site, contributing to a broader picture that remains open to interpretation. At the same time, the role of perception continues to influence how the formation is understood. The human tendency to recognize patterns shapes how features are interpreted. This allows the same surfaces and edges to be seen in different ways. This interaction between observation and perception highlights the complexity of understanding a structure that does not fit easily into a single category. The ongoing debate surrounding the formation reflects this complexity. Natural explanations emphasize geological processes, while alternative interpretations consider the possibility of additional influences. Each perspective draws on the same features, yet arrives at different conclusions, maintaining a balance where no single explanation fully resolves the structure. Public awareness has expanded the reach of the Yonaguni Formation, bringing it into a wider context where it can be observed and discussed by those beyond the immediate region. Images and descriptions allow the structure to be experienced from a distance, extending its presence beyond the ocean environment. This broader awareness contributes to the continued interest in the site, where new perspectives can emerge. The historical context of the region adds another layer to this understanding. Changes in sea level, geological activity, and human presence over time provide a background against which the formation can be considered. These factors do not determine a single explanation, but they contribute to a wider framework that supports ongoing exploration. Despite the attention it has received, the Yonaguni Formation remains largely unchanged in its physical presence. Beneath the water, it continues to exist as it has for extended periods, shaped by natural forces that act gradually over time. This continuity allows it to be observed across different moments, where each visit offers a slightly different experience, shaped by conditions and perspective. The absence of a definitive conclusion does not diminish the significance of the formation. Instead, it reinforces its role as a place that encourages careful observation and thoughtful interpretation. The structure becomes a point of reflection, where the relationship between what is seen and what is understood can be explored. In this way, the Yonaguni Formation represents more than a physical structure. It reflects a process of inquiry, where observation leads to questions, and questions lead to further exploration. This process does not require a final answer, but continues as long as the formation remains a subject of interest. The interaction between structure, environment, and perception creates a setting where multiple layers of understanding exist at once. The formation can be seen as a natural feature, a structured space, or a combination of influences, depending on how it is approached. This flexibility allows it to remain open to different interpretations, each contributing to its overall presence. As the formation continues to be studied and observed, it remains a place where attention is drawn to detail, where patterns are examined, and where meaning is considered carefully. This ongoing engagement reflects the nature of the site, where its significance lies not in a single explanation, but in the process of understanding. The quiet presence of the Yonaguni Formation beneath the ocean serves as a reminder that not all structures provide immediate answers. Some invite observation, patience, and reflection. This allows understanding to develop gradually over time. In this setting, the formation remains both a physical space and a point of curiosity, where the balance between clarity and uncertainty continues to shape how it is experienced. Thank you for listening to the Sleepy Mind channel. I hope you enjoyed learning about Yonaguni.